This is the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast, session number 393. Chris Lemig on the pathway to confidence.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis Podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Now, if you've been following this Work Smart Hypnosis podcast series ever since I began, or even if you've just recently begun listening, part of the backstory is that it was often at different conventions, different gatherings, that yes, the presentations were outstanding, yes, the speakers and the trainers delivered quality content, yet often the biggest takeaways are what happened in the conversations you would have with other people, be it, maybe in the hallways of a convention or going out to lunch with people you did not yet know. And the origin of this program was basically having the conversations that I wanted to have in this industry and, just inviting several thousand of you along each week to then listen to the conversation too, which I will openly tell you is the exact story of this week's episode. Chris Lemig was previously on the program back in February of 2021. And he was someone that as soon as I started to see what he was doing online and hear him speak about the work that he was doing, that's where he was first invited on. Yet there was a very clear transition that I was observing of the work that he does ever since then, which was a greater level of comfort and confidence in his own messaging, a greater sense of, let's call it, well-earned authority of how he talked about the work that he does. And as I saw he recently put out a book, it became the easiest mechanism to go, hey, Chris, come back on. And inside of this week's episode, inside of the conversation you're about to listen to, we talk about a number of things that admittedly, a lot of you on the surface structure probably know you ought to be doing, probably are over there thinking you should be doing, which is part of the reason why many of the questions that I ask of Chris in this conversation are more about what was the turning point, what was the place where the belief system changed, and it then became easier to speak from a place of confidence and say, here is the program that I do, here is the number of sessions that we're going to meet for, and this is why we do it this way. And not have it be, oh, because someone told me I should book this many appointments. No. Instead, it's through his specific experience by putting in the reps, basically figuring out what works for him. This is the style of process that he has found he is the most effective helping his clients with. And as clearly it's a bit of a breakout year that's been going on, that's a huge part of it. So it's not just book a multiple session program, though it is. It's also having the journey, having put in the reps, having had the experience to then be able to very confidently explain to the client, this is what I found to be the most effective. Similar to that too, his personal journey of really stepping into the role that all of us need to step into more of, that of being the content creator. We hear this all the time. Put yourself out there, put the message out there. And what really needs to occur is exactly what Chris talks about in this conversation about this shifting of the spotlight, as I'd say, the shifting of the spotlight as to what really was important, and also some of the action steps that are necessary to then officially get yourself out there. I would reference a thing that Chris actually posted inside of our private hypnotic business systems community a while ago, which is he had put up like the, little animations like Facebook does now, and was something along the lines of the quote being, I finally had it happen. The client came in and said, it felt like they already know me. Which this is what happens as you put that knowledge out there. And yes, we talk about his book that just recently released. I'll let him kind of take the stage of explaining that book to you, and even better, how it fits into his entire world. So there are some massive takeaways in this conversation, be it how we work with our clients, how we communicate with ourselves, and also how we attract those clients into our world. So I'd encourage you, head over to worksmarthypnosis.com and grab the show notes for this week's episode. There's a search function on the Work Smart Hypnosis website, and Chris's last name is spelled with just 5 letters, Lemig. Type that in. You're going to see the previous episode Chris did with me about a year and a half ago, as well as the one you are about to listen to right now. And the show notes are there. That's where you can find the links to Chris's website. You can find the links to his book on Amazon and find exactly how to continue this conversation with Chris. And while you're there, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And we like to say that guessing sucks. So instead, use what actually works. And Hypnotic Business Systems is not just the at-your-own-pace digital access training that I do specifically for hypnosis, specifically for business, the art of actually getting hypnosis clients. It's also become a thriving community. So as you have questions on what you're working on, we're there to support you. We've got more than 1,000 members around the world inside of Hypnotic Business Systems. And the quick history of it was that it used to be tell you what to do. Then it became show you how to do it, because some of the tasks are often a bit technical. And instead, ever since we closed down the Virginia Hypnosis office, the business I ran for 12 years, and now I see all my clients online under more of a personality-based brand. And because we closed the business down and I moved 1,000 miles away, it kind of empowered me to make this Hypnotic Business Systems program even better for you, because we've now published complete done-for-you marketing campaigns that you can reproduce with your name and your information inside of it. So head over to hypnoticbusinesssystems.com, watch the video tour, grab your spot inside. And with that, so excited to have him back in the program. We're going to do this again. This time it's not going to be another year and a half delay. So here we go, session number 393, Chris Lemig on the pathway to confidence. Hey, we're back here again with Chris Lemig, who was on the program before. And Chris, good to have you back on.
Hey, Jason, it's great to be here.
Yeah, and for those that have not yet heard the original episode, kind of give us a quick backstory as to who you are and what you do.
Yeah. So again, my name's Chris Lemig. I'm a hypnotherapist based out here in Seattle. But of course, in the age of the internets, I see clients all over the place. So do a lot of online work as well. I kind of help people focus on improving their self-image, boosting their confidence, and really breaking through, those internal sort of feelings about themselves that they're unworthy or they're not valuable or they're somehow broken. So that's kind of my main deal. I come from interesting kind of background. I don't mind saying that it's sort of interesting because, well, it is. I've got a kind of a different kind of resume. Before I was a hypnotherapist, I was a Tibetan Buddhist monk. So I was living in India. I was kind of bouncing around India, Nepal, and Tibet. Spent several years over there. When I got back to the States, I, decided to come back to be a normal guy, right? Just return my robes and leave my ordination behind. And at that point, I had kind of that, kind of a different kind of midlife crisis. Like, what do I do after being a red-robed, head-shaved monk? And so what I decided was to look into hypnotherapy, and that turned out to be, hey, I haven't looked back since.
I love it. And I'd openly say you're one of my favorite people in this industry these days, watching the work that you do, watching some of the content that you put out online. And what's kind of the update? It was February 2021, I just checked, that you were just last on. And what's been sort of that evolution of whether it's how you work with clients or even how you run your business?
Wow, just a lot has changed in all those areas, both those main kind of columns there. As far as how my business has changed, I've kind of stepped into kind of putting on grown-up pants and just getting out there and just saying like, hey, this is my livelihood, this is my business, this is my passion, and I'm going to invest in that. So not only financially, but just in terms of just kind of putting myself out there more, getting my content out there, really honing my message and and just constantly evolving that. So yeah, marketing has kind of changed a little bit in terms of just reaching out, communicating with people through Facebook ads and Google ads, all these different tactics. But really from the point of view that like, hey, I've got a specific issue that I'm working with people on, and a solution for them. Which comes to, again, the second part, which is, how is my practice changed in terms of how I help people. And I've kind of came to the conclusion after 3 years of practice that, like, hey, I need to help people. The way I'm going to help people best is through multiple sessions. I kind of experimented with, like, hey, let's let the client dictate what it is that they need and what they want, and, like, sometimes that was one session, sometimes that was like they do 2 sessions and then I never hear from them again. What I realized is that if I want to really get in deep with people and really help them transform their thoughts and their feelings about themselves, we need to do a little bit of deeper work. So I created a program of 6 sessions that now I kind of offer as a package to people, and it's called Pathway to Confidence, and that's been hugely successful. So I feel comfortable. I feel like I'm connecting with people in the way that I want to, and I feel like they're getting, like, much better results than what I was getting before.
Yeah, and you just did my favorite thing, which is in the first, like, 3.5 minutes of this conversation, you planted the seeds for, like, everything else that we need to now unpack.
Wonderful.
Which
Great.
is amazing. I was going to ask, though, because one of the things you said, well, let's start with the actual last thing you said, the actual client work. And I'm going to ask it from a slightly different angle than normal, because usually this is a crowd of people who listen to this program that are a little bit more attuned to thinking in terms of, let's say, nuts and bolts.
Sure.
As in, no, 3 sessions is better than 1. No, 6 is better than 3. And you hit on something there that I think is, well, I know is massively important, which is that to put yourselves in the shoes of the potential client, they are looking for a solution.
Exactly.
And the fact that now you're presenting a specific solution, and by telegraphing, here's what the process is going to be, you are putting yourself in the well-respected expert role who has a solution for them. The question, though, is, was there anything, let's say, on an emotional level, a belief system level, that had to change inside of you to then get to that point where it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of had to step into a mindset of, you know what, I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, like
That's a very important place to get to, which only, let me
Sure.
strongly lead the question here. That's something that only occurs by getting in the reps and getting out there and doing the work.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of that is exactly what I did. When I opened my practice in 2019, September 2019, I just opened my doors and I said, hey, I'm going to start dealing with clients. Of course, I had, like, a little bit of, nervousness and doubt and uncertainty about that, but I really dove right in and I just started helping people. I made some mistakes. I learned a lot. Like I say, over the course of 2 or 3 years, I really kind of just took good notes and was like, hey, what's working? What's not working? And, eventually I was able to step into the mindset of, like, hey, you know what? Here's how I want to help people. These are the steps that I want to take people through. Now, it's going to change for each individual client. Of course, there's flexibility and all that, but I really kind of stepped into this mindset of, like, I am the guide here, and let me lead my client through this process, and that's kind of the conclusion I've come to, and it's, like I say, it's working really well.
I think that's a huge thing that needs to be highlighted even further, that, oftentimes this may be a generalization, but here comes the moment where, I would hear from more likely a startup hypnotist, and it's but they said they just wanted to do 1 session and see how it goes.
Right.
And if we always operate from the mindset that, let's go to an NLP presupposition on this, the meaning of the communication is the response that it gets. If we're hearing that, it doesn't mean that person, well, it does mean the person doesn't yet believe in you. Right. But really better to look at it as, what's something else I can do to then telegraph that it's not, I want to get paid for 6 sessions. It's that, no, as you said, to quote you, I know what I'm doing. This is what I found to be the most effective. Are there any, pieces of advice, any nuances you can share as to how it did eventually get to that place where it is now, knowing that, we all are constantly tweaking and improving what we do?
Sure. I kind of played around with for a long time with like, I'm offering, sessions, right? So
Right.
that's what that's where the value is based. It's like, okay, I'm gonna, I'm charging and I'm pricing according to this number of minutes, this number of hours, and stepping out of that, recognizing from some of the things, a lot of the things that you've shared with us, and with the community about how to look at what it is that we're offering people. I started to realize that this is about solutions and outcomes. It's not about a straight trade for time, and so I created this program, right? And a program that I am confident is going to cover all the bases and give people the experience and the tools and the sort of the transformational experience that they need to create the changes they want to create. So yeah, it was really about looking at like, hey, so how am I going to get people from their problem to their solution? What's the best way to do that? What's how do I utilize all of my skills and all of my knowledge to be able to give that to them?
Do I have your permission to kind of riff off of the title, Permission, Pathway to Confidence, as long as we also give the audience the disclaimer going, hey, don't use that because that's Chris's.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure, absolutely.
Only reason I bring this up is that there's something beautiful inside of that, which I do need to ask a question to confirm before I share this. I'm assuming that people are coming into what you're now calling Pathway to Confidence. They're coming into it often with different sets of goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, sometimes people are coming in with weight loss goals. Sometimes people are coming in with, low self-esteem. Sometimes one of the things that I kind of use in my marketing is I talk about imposter syndrome. A lot of people reach out to me for that sort of that belief that, hey, no matter how well I seem to be doing on the outside, I'm just a total failure. I don't know what I'm doing. So I get a lot of people coming in from that. There's people who are coming in with smoking. There's people who are coming in with, early childhood trauma experiences that they're wanting to clear out. So there's a variety of issues that people are bringing to the table, and but it's all aimed at this solution of like them finding the confidence to be able to step into a new reality, a new way of being.
Which, if you've followed some of my more recent stuff, I am saying niche rhymes with rich. I'm saying that a bit less these days because there's a different way of looking at the niching down. That the conventional thinking is stop smoking, lose weight. I work with people doing the ketogenic diet. I work with people with IBS, and that does work. Yet
Sure.
the sort of expansion of this, and niching is either a startup or an expansion strategy. And in my opinion, the expansion is exactly what you've beautifully done there, which is here is a almost poetic title that invites people to go inside of it and come up with their own logic as to what that means specifically to them.
Exactly.
And it allows us to then solve a very specific problem, yet for a wide variety of people, because now the true niche is you and the journey you guide people through, and not as much about the what anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nicely done.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. And I feel so comfortable with that now. Before I was kind of just exploring and not sure which direction I really wanted to go. But I just kept coming back to, no, this is where I want to be. I want to help people get in touch with their true selves, their real inner resources of wisdom and encouragement and support that they already have within themselves. And how do I do that? And this is what kind of has evolved.
And I'm guessing there might be an extremely satisfying answer to this question, or one that may not be as satisfying. I'm just curious to ask, not so much the what are you doing, but why 6?
I've just kind of found that that's just the number that tends to work very well. My first 2 sessions are quite focused in terms of what we cover, and that leaves about 3 sessions to do some deeper sort of transformational work and skill building and things like that. And then the final sessions is a follow-up where we meet anytime within 30 days after the 5th session, and we just kind of check in, see how well things are going, and make any fine-tune adjustments that we need to make.
Yeah. And tell me if this is a fair paraphrase of that. It's giving you the time to actually address the issue from different angles and not just throw the one dart and hope you got it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it leaves room for some exploration and trial and error. I do feel that, each of the sessions that I work with people, there's significant progress is made. But, of course, there's going to be times where it's like, what, a person doesn't respond that well to a specific strategy or technique. And so we just say, hey, okay, well, let's do something new. Let's do something that's actually going to work.
Nice, nice. Trying to remember whose line this was. I think it was the phrase that, we do that because some techniques are more effective than others.
Exactly. Sure. Sure. And I think we've all been there where it's like, hey, you know what? This works with 99% of people. And we're sitting there going, yeah, I'm super confident that this is going to work. And then, the person says, you know what? I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
What's happening here? Nothing's happening or whatever it is their experience is. And so we pivot and we adjust and we adapt, right?
I'm flashing to the story of a friend of mine, and if you've listened to me at any point, there's always we don't do the absolutes thing. There's no, this technique is good, this technique is bad. Yet you start to kind of notice some trends. And it was another hypnotist who had the story that, I was let me start at the end of the story first. All he ended up doing was, despite the fact that he was also an instructor who also, like all of us, talk about, okay, well, scripts can serve a purpose for like studying and learning language patterns, yet it's going to be in your best interest to not like sit with the client and stare at a sheet of paper
Sure.
and just, read to them. So let's not throw out the entire category. Yet he got so stuck working with this client, even though massively skilled practitioner, he goes, it pissed me off that all I did was sit with him for 4 sessions and just read scripts.
Right.
And it worked.
Right.
And it was the nuance, though, that, what was it? I think in like one of the earlier appointments, it was not necessarily a deeply emotional regression, but to put it into another category, any kind of interactive hypnotic work just wasn't firing. And
Right.
I was the one, he goes, well, in session 2, I tried to do like the Roy Hunter parts therapy. I'm like, dude, if you couldn't get him interacting, this is not going to be the person going, name that part. Fear. It's like, if that one style isn't going to click, the other one's probably not going to click either. And I'm assuming this is where you probably have a good preconceived notion as to where you're likely going in the journey, yet there's going to be variation, of course, inside of it.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had several clients like that who, because I do a lot of interactive work. I do a lot of, it's very engaged, it's very collaborative. But sometimes that just isn't working, and sometimes people just want to they don't want to say anything. And I've actually had a client, last year who I still continue to see from time to time who said, I don't want to do anything. I just want you to do it. And I was like, okay, we can do that. Let's go for it. And so that is, that's a situation where I just pivoted and I adapted and I said, let's, of course, by, kind of slyly, shifting things so that, there was participation, there was interaction, but a lot of it was framed in this idea of like, hey, I'm just going to tell you how to change.
Well, some would hear that, and here come all the automatic belief systems of, oh, it means they're not serious. Oh, it means they're resistant. I would hear that and go, oh, sweet, they just handed you a hypnotic contract.
Absolutely.
They have a preconceived notion as to how it's likely going to go, and if you deliver that, it aids the process. Richard Nongard has this beautiful lecture he gives on the power of the 10-to-1 deepener, because why? People know that hypnotists count backwards. And then when you do it, they go, oh, that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's meeting their expectations in a healthy way, in an effective way.
Yeah. And I thank you for sharing what you mentioned there about, again, I was asking more from the personal journey, because we can hear everything as advice. Oh, you should be doing this. And it's not until it becomes our specific reason that we have logic behind. When we have our own because of what we do. So similar to that, everyone says, myself included, put yourself out there. You can want the universe to deliver it to you, but you kind of got to let the universe know that you're there. What would you say was the turning point from like what you were doing previously to then working on actually putting that message out there, putting yourself out in a more consistent way?
Yeah. So I had to take a hard, long look at my the fundamentals of my business. Like, who am I? Who am I wanting to connect with? And what problem am I trying to solve, and how am I going to solve that for people? So I really did a long, not well long, but an intensive period of about a month where I really spent every single day really methodically going through, like, who is my ideal client? How am I, what is their problem? What are they thinking? What are their day-to-day challenges? What are they feeling? And really trying to step inside their shoes. And that was also based on a lot of the clients that I'd already worked with. So I had some data, and I had some experience to draw upon. And really kind of getting to know my client better, and then understanding their problem better, and then really mapping out this solution for them. So it was a period of just simply sitting down and saying, like, okay, so who am I? Identifying myself, identifying what it is that I'm trying to do for people.
So basically, by bringing it out of yourself, and I think this is often, you just perfectly defined my solution, by the way, for imposter syndrome, which is that as we're internalizing that story, as we're internalizing that belief system, it's all the emphasis on us. And by lifting it out and focusing on the person on the other side, which in the work that we do is a big part of, for many of us, why we do it. What came easier by then shifting that focus on the audience and working to communicate with them and really align with them?
Again, kind of based upon, for one thing, my own experience of imposter syndrome, that was very helpful. But listening to the clients that I had worked with before, and kind of going over in my mind and going over the notes, and just saying, like, you know what, I know this person. I hear the same things being said over and over and over again about, like, I just don't trust myself. I don't believe in myself. I feel like purposeless, and like my life doesn't have any meaning. So just being able to put myself again in their shoes, I found that sense of empathy was the most powerful thing for me, to be able to start connecting with people in this new way.
So then, as a result of that, what would you say has been the biggest difference? Not just in terms of, let's say, client flow. Have the clients been coming in of perhaps just a better quality, a better level?
Definitely a better quality, because I'm connecting with people in my marketing material, my messaging with people, so that they're coming with a clearer sense of, oh yeah, you know what, that's what it is. That's what you call it. You call it imposter syndrome, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, whatever it is for them. But so they're coming with a clearer sense of what it is, what their problem is. And by the time I walk them through our initial call, consultation, strategy call, whatever you want to call it, I've helped to guide them to understand their problem even better, to clarify it, to recognize why it sucks, why it's no longer tenable, why they don't want to be this way anymore, and then how do you want to be? Here's the solution. So the quality of clients is definitely improved. So I'm happier working with people, and they're happier with their results, because we're just both on the same page.
So then, if you had to kind of break it down for those that are listening, that there is some kind of block about putting out content, and I will openly admit, embrace this as a limiting belief if you don't like this, getting started is the more difficult part. Once you're doing it, it's ridiculously easy. Yet it's like exercise. I call it the conspiracy of exercise. If you're not yet exercising, it's damn near impossible. If you're already doing it, it's really easy to keep it in momentum. So if you had to break down a strategy for people who want to build that momentum and even just get started, what would you recommend?
I recommend falling in love with your calendar.
Yes. Can I just tell you that right before we hopped on, and I love this person, but someone who was scheduled with me later today, then rescheduled.
Okay.
And one side of me is going, I was looking forward to that meeting. The other side is like, I just got an hour back. I can do this other project that's very time sensitive.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's how I look at it too. It's like there's always something to be done. But just really, getting really good at setting up a calendar for yourself and putting in those slots of like, hey, this is the time where I do my writing. This is the time where I do my video content. This is the time when I do my blog writing. This is the time when I do my ad writing. Whatever it is, you're going to put these things in. I put them into my calendar, and that's God to me.
Right there with you. If it's,
Yeah.
I figured out just as a personal thing, I was the person that if I did a to-do list, I was doing the to-do list to not do the stuff on the to-do list.
Right.
And
Right.
instead, if it's important, it gets scheduled. And it's where, like, let's look at this show as an example. We intentionally took a bit of a break as we were rebuilding a whole bunch of other stuff. Yet this week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I'll be done with the episodes until like the second week of January. And we're recording in November, releasing in December. So it's, do you tend to batch as well in terms of this is the time that I do it, then it releases later?
Yeah, definitely. So,
Yeah.
I've got like, and I'm getting better at that. I'm definitely, I have a lot of room for improvement with that, but that's what I'm starting to do more and more of. I've got now like this, like a library of various different types of content that I can, categorize and have, I can recycle and I can schedule and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful then. Hey, speaking of writing, look at that transition.
Hey, wonderful.
Take the lead here. Tell us about the book.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, taking a cue from, Richard Nongard, taking, cues from you as well, and other inspirations. Plus, I love writing. I decided, you know what, it's time to write a book on hypnosis. Why not? Right? There was this kind of, again, imposter syndrome thing going on with me where I was like, oh, I can't write a book on hypnosis yet. How pretentious is that? And then recognizing that, you know what, no, I can write a book on hypnosis. Why not? I have all these blog posts. I have all these, all this experience. I now have this program that I've developed to help people, Pathway to Confidence, and so why not just put that into a short little handbook that kind of guides people through the process that I take my clients through. So it's called Hypnosis for Healing, a handbook for mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And basically that's really what it is. It's kind of an extended pre-talk. It's something that we can go into great, a little bit more detail than just 15, 20, 30-minute pre-talk with people. It's something that they can take with them. I give to each of my clients a signed copy of the book along with a custom journal that I've developed for them. And they take that home and they've got this nice little handbook about the hypnotic process and all the different types of techniques that we may use during the process. So they can read it on their own, or they can also, it can be utilized as kind of like a homework tool where, like before the first session, our higher self session, I'll have them read the chapter on the higher self and how that, works into hypnosis. And, we might be doing some NLP anchoring, or that might be coming up. So I'll have them read the chapter on anchoring. So it becomes this wonderful tool for them to learn more about the process, and also for me to plant the seeds of success in their minds before we even get started.
Yeah, and there's so many things inside of what you've just done there. I'd be curious to ask if there ever was in this journey the fear that I hear this from others, which would be, oh, if I give it away there, they're not going to need me.
Right. I hear that, and I can relate to that to a certain degree, but I don't know if I've ever really had that fear, because I believe that the work that we do in session and one-to-one, it just it goes deeper. There's a deeper connection.
Yeah.
It's more rich. There's just more to offer there. And so what I'm offering in the book is, sure, I mean, people could take this book, and because it is kind of a step-by-step process, and they could apply these things on their own. And if they do, that's wonderful. I'm happy for them. I actually work with a lot of people who'd never pay me. Right? So they come to my free, Tuesday hypnosis booster session, or they come to some of my workshops or whatever, or maybe they'll read the book, and that's good enough for them, and that they get what they get out of it, and that's great. But I also have worked with people like that who eventually do become paying clients, after a year or so. So, yeah, so I'm not too concerned about that. I think
Yeah,
that the
it's
more
one of
you
those
give,
things
the
that's
more you get.
it's more often a perceived issue than it is an actual issue. And I think one of the easiest references to
Mhm.
make here, and I always have to give the disclaimer on this one apparently, which is set aside any belief systems as to whether you think the work is good or not, yet you can buy for $15 the stuff that Tony Robbins does, one of his
Right,
books.
right,
You could go to one of his events for like 3 days, and I think that one has a price point of like 600 or so.
okay,
And then you could also do the one that's 5 days, which is several $1,000s, or you could spend upwards of six figures to hang out with him in Fiji.
right,
And
right.
along the journey, it's the same knowledge, it's the level of access and support that changes.
Exactly, exactly.
And so
Yeah,
people are used to a natural ascension ladder
right.
along the way. So if you have that fear that if I put it out there, they're not going to need me, stop it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we really got to take a look at our own subconscious, limitations, the self-imposed, right? Of like, oh, it's a value issue as well. It's like, do I think that what I offer is valuable? And we've got to get to the point where it's like an absolutely emphatic yes, of course it's valuable. I have something unique to offer people, something that you have something unique to offer people. Everyone who's listening, you have something unique to offer that nobody else can, and that's an important thing to develop an unflinching faith in.
Beautiful. And then another appropriately leading question. Are you bothered by the fact that it sounds like theoretically you've given away more copies of the book than you've sold direct copies of the book?
Yeah, that's. I think at first I had fantasies of like, hey, maybe all of a sudden this book will go viral, and I'll sell a certain number of copies, and then I realized, what, that's not the point. That's not why I wrote this book necessarily. Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that. It really is about offering people something of value, something that they can use, something they can refer to, something that can be a launching point for them. Whether that means working with me, one to one, or finding their own path in another way, that's fine. But yeah, it's more of an initial connection with people that gives them a sense of who I am and what it is that I do.
That right there, side note to this is obviously, hey, if you could make your book directly profitable, that's awesome. Like I will say, this is not too big of a brag. Here's money that flows in every single month from the sales of my book, and
Right.
sweet, that comes in. And in the US, that is considered a royalty payment, and it's taxed at a much lower rate, which is awesome. And perhaps why I'm certain Richard Nongard has so many books. Yet
Right.
it's more so like people have asked, like, oh, how much have you made selling the book? I go, it's not the sales of the book that I'm tracking. It's what the book opens up.
Right.
And
Right.
it's that experience of what it then begins to create, which, yes, if it becomes profitable, that's nothing to shake a stick at. Yet it's also, though, how it serves a benefit. And the part that I love about this is that it's become a bit of a guideline, a bit of a thing that now supplements your process. It's become a hybrid approach. And respectfully, there's stuff that you don't really have to teach in real time anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, that was one of the things that one of the reasons why I wrote the book with this intention in mind. I found that as I was even working with people in this multi-session, this 6-session program, there was still times where it's like I don't feel like I really got into enough depth with them as to what is parts therapy, what is that all about, what are we doing here, what are the nuances of that. So I'm able to do that here in the book, and to again give them this assignments as needed, or it's just something that they can simply read on their own and just get a clearer understanding of what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, I love it. Chris, it's so good to have you back on and hear what you've been up to. I'm going to ask a question I don't think I've ever asked on this program, which is you've been having this renaissance in your own career and rethinking a lot of what you do, and clearly it's working. And I may have been leading the questions a bit more on the emotional journey because let's look at it. Everything we've talked about is the stuff that we all hear we ought to be doing, yet it's often more that personal thing to have to overcome to then just get started. what do you feel really needs to be the internal story of someone, whether it is writing a book, whether it is promoting, whether it's even opening up that first practice, that first office, be it in person or even online? What is it that you kind of impart to those people to build up that motivation to get up and running?
I think it's feel the fear and do it anyway.
Nice.
Is a big one, and using the principles, especially in the work that we do, applying the things that we offer to our clients, really, engaging in an honest, kind of fearless path of self-inquiry, just always just watching what's happening internally. What am I thinking? Are these thoughts serving me? Are they not serving me? And then just developing that confidence and that faith in your own worthiness, your own value, because you are worth it and you are valuable, and what you have to offer is valuable.
Phenomenal. Where can people get in contact with you? How can they find the book?
Yeah, it is. The book is available on Amazon. So if you just, type in there, Hypnosis for Healing, Chris Lemig, it'll just pop right up. You can also go to my website, which is TrueNatureHypnotherapy.com. And I, kind of have all my whole practice is laid out there, the things that I do and how to get in touch with me. And there's also a link for the book on the website as well.
Awesome, which we'll put links to everything in the show notes over at WorkSmartHypnosis.com, including the previous episode, and let's not let it be another 18 months before we do this again. Cool?
I can't believe it's been 18 months. That's crazy.
Roughly.
Okay.
I did the math. More than that. February. What
Wow.
day is it? Close. Let's round it off. Year and a half.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming back on. I'm going to tie this one up here with an interesting question to bring it all home. Chris, what are you excited about?
I'm just excited about continuing to work with more and more people, to bring it to a financial aspect as well. Might this year, by the end of this year, this might be my first 6-figure year. So I'm just excited about that. Again, it's not all about the money, but it's it is about financial prosperity and success as well. So I'm really excited about what the future holds.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for leaving your reviews for this program on your favorite podcast players, for sharing this episode in your ongoing hypnotic conversations, as well as interacting with our phenomenal guests. So head over to WorkSmartHypnosis.com. You can check out the show notes attached to this week's episode with Chris Lemig. Again, it's spelled Lemig. Search that. We'll bring you to both episodes we've done with him. That's where you can find links to his book, links to his website. And while you're there, check out hypnoticbusinesssystems.com. Let's take the guesswork of how to bring the right hypnotic clients into your hypnotic business. And the systems mindset is quite simple. There's more than 24 specific business action plans published inside of Hypnotic Business Systems. Every module stands on its own. If you're brand new, you could go through everything in order. It's published in a specific way. Or if you're looking to level things up and scale what you do, again, each module stands on its own. You can dive into the one or two that are important to you, build those out, get them up and running, and now, as Ron Popeil used to say, set it and forget it. Now move on to another mechanism. And this is how we start to build that spider web that now brings more people in, and now they stick. I'm realizing there's probably more inspiring metaphors than spider webs. While I work on that, you should head over to hypnoticbusinesssystems.com, watch the video tour, join us today.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.